tonight with Marc Laimon. How you doing, Marc?
Good.
Wow, what a bio and a career you've had. Your journey in the jiu-jitsu world started 10 years ago with the legendary Gracie's family. How and why did you pick up jiu-jitsu?
Saw Hoist fight UFC 4 and thought it made sense, and I decided to, drop out of school and start training jiu-jitsu.
Full time?
Full time.
Is that the reason why you're so fast and furious in terms of your rise in terms of a fighter and trainer?
I think because I lived in the gym and all I did was do jiu-jitsu. When all my friends were going out partying, I just stayed in the gym and watched videotapes and studied jiu-jitsu pretty much all the time. I had nothing else to do, play a couple video games, but I just studied and became dedicated to the sport.
A lot of kids can play video games better than playing the real games nowadays, from basketball to football.
I'm pretty good. I'm pretty good at the video games.
Really?
Fight night round 3. If you can beat me, I'll give you a free private.
Okay. He's thrown the gauntlet down. You're still competing as of last year, and you defeated the BJJ black belt Fabio Nascimento on the main event on the Never Tap Out tournament. So you still got competitive juice and bug in you. How's it different than watching your fighters versus training them?
It's a little bit. I get more joy right now to see my students win in tournaments, because a lot of people say, oh, if you're good at jiu-jitsu, that's because you're good, you're naturally gifted towards it or whatever. And if your students are winning in tournaments, that's showing that the technique that you're teaching them is good, and I think that shows that you have a more of an understanding of jiu-jitsu, a full understanding to make someone else better. It's easy to make yourself good, but to transfer that knowledge to the next generation, I think, shows a mastery of the sport.
You have like 10 plus championships underneath your belt, and at 2001 you started your school here, and I believe 2004? But you started teaching around 2001, is that about right? Different schools?
I was teaching pretty much for 9 years. I started doing privates when I was a blue belt, and then slowly started getting more and more classes. I started teaching full-time when I was purple.
Yeah, your school's won the Grappler Quest tournament 4 times.
Yeah. The only school to do that, by the way. And there's schools that have been here 10 years, 6 years, and they haven't been able to do that. So
you have some grand things happening this year. Don't you have like 3 schools or 2 schools? There's another one happening in one of the gyms?
Yeah, I got a couple other satellite schools here in town, but this is still headquarters right here for Cobra.
Oh, okay. Who are you currently training now?
Joe Stevenson, Frank Mir comes by and train. We have a lot of fighters in the UFC that come down and wrestle these jiu-jitsu classes. And then just training my team here, we got a bunch of good guys that compete all the time. And got a tournament this weekend that we're going to, actually, so see how they do with that.
Marc, when do you know when you see like a diamond in the rough in terms of when you're going to classes, you see a particular guy? What stands out before you go, hey, wait a minute, this guy's got
there's guys that you'll see that have good natural ability. But the guys with the good natural ability are lazy and don't want to push themselves. The guys who are decent at it and just really dedicate themselves and have a love for the sport and do anything they can to better themselves are the guys that you'll see will go further than the guys that have the natural talent, because they have the desire. And jiu-jitsu is not rocket science. It's basically science and if-then statements, and you can figure it out. And if you have a strong love for the sport and are passionate and really dedicated, anybody can be good at it. And I think that's a lot of those guys. A lot of my students aren't the best athletes, but they've just been really dedicated. And I guess they had a good teacher too. But a lot of they taught themselves. I taught them how to watch videotapes and study themselves, and boom, they're more technical than I am nowadays.
Yeah, we spoke with a couple of your students, and they say one of the reasons why they go into jiu-jitsu is simply because they feel like they're a smaller dude, and with jiu-jitsu they can, really, if they really have to fight, compete in the real world against bigger guys.
Yeah, I think if you saw the little Filipino kid, Simgo, he only weighs about $135. Yeah. My girlfriend's stronger than he is, but he's got the sickest technique in the gym, and I've seen him tap out guys at 260.
260?
260, yeah, and I see him do it all the time. To me, I always laugh, because I'll put him with a new guy who comes in who's big and sit wreck shop on him just because he's so technical.
Wow.
And, he's really becoming, a really good practitioner, and as well as a good teacher.
All right. And then your ties with the Polynesian is phenomenal, from the 808 state to Guam. How did that come about?
Man, I don't know, all these people from Hawaii usually hate Howleys, but I started teaching in Hawaii back in like 2000, right. And I had a good rapport. I had a great time in Hawaii, and I treat the island with respect. I'm not a typical Howley, try not to be. I know a lot of local people, and basically, just got a good rapport with them, and I beat up some of their guys that were good on the island there, and started getting some students that way. And then here in Vegas, man, I don't know, I got a lot of Hawaiians that like to train here. I got a lot of guys from Guam.
Yeah, lots.
They sent some guys from some Chamorros came over, and they liked the training here. And then I went out to Guam a few times, had a good time out there. And I tell everybody, the guys from the islands, I think, are some of the best students. They're really dedicated. I think fighting's in their blood.
It is,
definitely. And they are some of my best students. I got one of my instructors in the morning, Sonny's another small 135 pound, 140 pound guy, and man, he's badass. He's a purple belt, and he's tapped black belts in competition. So,
wow, fantastic.
The island plus the teacher.
For the fighters that want to be, can you go through some of the typical workout schedules before like a competition or pre-fight? Or what do they got to do?
It all depends. A lot of the guys, take it upon their own shoulders to do it for like grappling tournaments. When the big ones come to town and we get like 50, 60 competitors, I run special classes where we do a lot of conditioning, a lot of drilling for particular stuff. Do a lot of takedown drilling and stuff like that, and just pretty much mimic a tournament as much as possible. Time limits, points, and all that. When it's fighting, same thing. You mimic the same things with fighting. Always wearing your gloves. Put them through, mock fights so they get used to that time limit, and somebody cornering them and yelling at them so they can perform under pressure.
Did you used to wrestle in high school?
Never. I wish.
Okay, so I used to wrestle. I'm wondering how close is it to in terms of conditioning for wrestling?
I think wrestling is a little bit more conditioned. There's no stalling in jiu-jitsu.
No.
You can be a lazy howly and
rest a little
stall.
bit.
There's places to stall. But if you take the wrestling mentality and apply it to jiu-jitsu, I think you have a nice blend of what's becoming more of Americanized jiu-jitsu.
The sport right now, the mixed martial arts sport, is brimming and about to flow over. I think Dana White was just on a national magazine interview. ESPN in the morning show, Colin Cowherd just did an interview with Dana, GSP, and Matt Hughes about the UFC. And even Colin, who came away super impressed with both Matt and GSP because they were so well versed. So what are your thoughts on the state of mixed martial arts?
I've been saying for a while it's going to eventually catch on, and now it's starting to look like it's finally coming to fruition.
Oh, yes.
I've been in the sport for 10 and a half years now. I can give you the exact date if you want. It's been 10 years, 7 months, and 3 days I've been doing this.
You're the granddaddy.
Not really, just, a guy who's a nerd that, studied a lot of jiu-jitsu and fights, and, I think in the next 5 to 10 years we're going to see some really sick fighters coming out, and there's more money involved, we get better athletes, and it's just going to be, better for us as the fans because we're going to see some sick fights.
And you need a bigger gym.
I'm working on that.
You're working on that. Now, you saw your teacher Royce being pummeled by Matt, or...
He's not my teacher. Well, he's the first guy who taught me, never really liked me, never really gave me attention.
Oh,
the only teacher
good.
That can claim is Ethan Milius, who helped me watch videotapes. He was an old student of Hoist, but go on with the question.
I was going to say, how has the sport changed the past few years from the time when he used to dominate to now?
Well, back
he's a scrub.
Basically when Hoist started, nobody knew what jiu-jitsu was. So
exactly.
Having a gun,
Yeah.
And nowadays, Hoist, is a pretty piss-poor athlete.
Yes.
And he thinks he's the shit, but he's not because, the sport's evolving constantly, and he doesn't think it's evolved. He thinks his Gracie style will win anything, and he's just not living in reality. He's a little bit delusional, and, you see the better guys, you see a guy from the Midwest, a farmer, take Hoist down, pass the guard, mount him, and shell him from the back of the head. That's showing you that the better athletes are learning jiu-jitsu.
Oh, yes.
And fighting as a whole. It's not just jiu-jitsu, it's Muay Thai, wrestling, everything combined. And, Hoist is left out in the dust because, his time is gone. He introduced things to people, but he never kept up to date with it himself, and I think that's what hurts him. And not being a good athlete.
All his quote-unquote protege have lost to a lot of Hawaiian fighters like BJ, beat up on a couple of Gracies. Now, there's an age-old question, I guess I'm repeating myself, just like they keep saying, Beirut could have hit all those home runs against the current people, but if Hoist was not as old as he is, do you think he would have beat Matt?
No, if you go back to the old UFCs and really watch Hoist's jiu-jitsu, it sucks. It's god-awful. I was watching with my girlfriend the other day, and I was like,
they all came back on DVD, correct.
Awful. You look at him, he looks like maybe a blue belt, a good blue belt doing jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
Really awful jiu-jitsu.
A lot of them didn't know what was happening.
Look at some of the newer guys, look at BJ, you look at some of the other fighters down in Brazil, that their games are way better. They're not as successful because everybody's learning it together, and Hoist will say, those guys are technical jiu-jitsu. It's bullshit, man. It's bullshit. BJ's got some of the best jiu-jitsu on the planet, and he dominates, and he's beaten a lot of Gracies, and BJ is just, really gifted as a fighter, and he stays up to date and always learning, always bringing new guys in to work out with him, and that's why he's one of the top fighters in the world today.
As with anything, these two questions are going to roll into one, so bear with me. As the size of your sports grow, politics always seeps in. Any thoughts about politicizing of the UFC, or does the main man upstairs make all the calls? And this has to do with a fight that BJ did with GSP. In terms of the fan that, a lot of fans like me think that BJ won, but GSP is basically quote-unquote Dana's boy. So unless BJ, knock him out or submit him, he wasn't going to win, and that's how it came out. But what do you think about politics? Is it going to be like boxing?
I don't think the politics play that big a role because those judges are brought in and they have to independently make decisions. The BJ fight could have gone either way. It was a split decision. I don't think BJ did enough to win the fight, but GSP didn't do much either. Got a couple takedowns, and when you leave it into the judge's decision, that's gonna you're leaving it in somebody else's hands. You got to try and end that fight yourself. And I don't think politics played that big of a role in it, but I don't think BJ did enough to win, and GSP really didn't do that much either. But he got the takedowns and did enough by the UFC criteria to get the W.
There's a rematch coming with him and Matt in September. That's what they're blowing up right now. That could be one of the big match. September.
Awesome.
That's the one. That was the interview that was happening in ESPN. They announced the fight there.
Oh yeah, GSP and Hughes.
Yeah, GSP and Hughes. Right. In September. Right.
BJ.
Oh no, BJ. I don't know what he's gonna do. He's a problem because I think he's trying to move up in weight class or something, and maybe his power to hit ratio is not the same because he's in a different weight class. And now you have all these supreme athletes that train day in and day out. Eating the right nutrition and stuff.
Yeah.
So. Now, one more thing. Ultimate Fighters on Spike TV. Did you know the effect it was going to have?
No, the first one was kind of like an experiment. We didn't know if it was going to work or not, but it really helped the sport. Introduced a lot of new people to MMA.
Right.
You can see in the UFC pay-per-views, they've been selling a lot more, and it's just making the sport grow in general. And I think it was a real great tool to get people to understand what MMA is about and educate the public to what fighting really is. It's not some fancy, flashy Taekwondo kicks.
Or some buffoons fighting in a bar, which is what a lot of people think. It's not like that anymore.
It's the best sport in the world, what I'm saying? It's the most exciting, and man, every time UFC rolls around, I get the week before I get the shakes. I can't wait to see those fights.
You got some of the most best conditioned athletes, all around conditioning, not just running.
So many ways to win, so many ways to lose. It's the best sport in the world.
What do you think of the chances of mixed martial arts becoming the big sporting event a la boxing, where millions of people watch?
Millions of people already watch.
No, I mean internationally. I know Japan is huge.
Slowly but surely, it's gonna take over boxing. Boxing,
because
has no stars.
No,
there's a lot of crummy decisions. Politics run the thing, and they don't have any new guys out there. MMA is getting all the guys. They're getting all the stud athletes. They're getting gold medalists, Olympians, and that's what's going to propel the sport to the next thing. And a boxing card, you pay $50. You only want to see the main event. A UFC, I want to see every single fight on the card. You get more bang for your buck, better fights, and it's going to take over once people understand what fighting truly is.
Right. Now there's another fighting organization coming over. Pride is supposedly coming in October. What are your thoughts about that coming into the UFC world in terms of USA market?
Pride's going to have to change their rules to adhere to the Nevada State Athletic Commission, and we'll see what happens with that. They're going to have to. I don't think they're allowed to use a ring, and they can't do their stomps and soccer kicks. So it's going to kind of change the Pride fighters. A lot of them rely on those things to end fights, so it'll be interesting to see what happens.
How do the fighters compare in terms of their quality and talent between the two?
I think there's good guys in both organizations, and anything can happen in a fight, so it's tough to say, who's the best and not, because the guys jump ship too, so.
Yeah, Pride sells out stadiums in Japan, and is one of the preeminent sports in Japan, and I think part of the reason why it grew in popularity for UFC was because of Pride, because they've been around for so long. A lot of fighters fighting between both leagues too, or both champions.
UFC was out before Pride.
Before they were bought by Dana though, right?
Yeah, but that was still out before Pride. Pride came around in like 98, 99.
Really? Wow.
UFC was out before that. Was back in 94.
Yeah, but it's taken over the whole Japan. I mean, almost as good.
Pride's in a lot of trouble right now. They lost their cable deal and stuff like that. Who knows what's going to happen with that? They lost their deal on TV, and I heard a lot of fighters are freaked out about it because they don't know what's going to happen with their salaries and what's going to happen.
So that's how the deal came about with Vandalay.
I don't know. I wasn't involved. I'm not a fan. I just watch. I have no idea what goes on with the dealings between Pride and UFC.
like the only thing that I did.
Watch the fights and enjoy them.
What do you think about that fight? Any predictions?
Anything can happen in a fight, but you know, Vanderlei's been rocked almost every one of his fights, and when Chuck hits you, he's got the one-hitter quitters. So if Chuck hits him first, you know, you can get it. But Vanderlei's an animal too. If I was a bet man, I'd probably bet on Chuck.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
And maybe I'll be your student soon.
Mahalo.
Hey, one last question about Hollies. Do you like Spam, musubi?
I don't like Spam, but I do have a Hawaiian girlfriend, and I love chicken adobo. I love meat jun. That's my favorite thing, meat jun. And if anybody ever visits me, bring me some Caramax.
Caramax, okay.
And some Hawaiian sun, and some poke too.
All right, thank you, Mark.
No limo.
No limo. Yeah. You don't like limo?
No
you
limo.
like,
I just like straight up poke, ahi poke.
Thank you. This is the new gym that you guys have. Nice. Hey, why'd you pick the cobra as your logo anyway?
Because people take themselves too seriously in martial arts. You can't laugh at yourself, you can be laughed at. So with a bat, and a lot of people hate me in jiu-jitsu as it is because, you know, we're successful.
Yeah.
And I don't sell people on a bunch of bullshit that takes 10 years to get your black belt.
Oh no.
You know, it's how much work you put into it, and you know, it's a joke. So.
Who's your favorite martial artist?
My favorite martial artist.
Don't tell me yourself.
Simpson Go.
I was gonna say your favorite artist would be Bruce Lee or something, because he said the same thing you're saying.
I don't know, man. I used to watch those guys growing up, and I think a lot of shit's, you know, bullshit, you know, but I don't know. Sim Go's my favorite martial artist.
You're funny. I think I have to be your student. This is a nice gym.